Okay, so welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. And today we are tackling something pretty complex,
Yeah.
and that is the potential fallout of the U.S. Basically, freezing nearly 40% of its global development funds.
Right.
We're going to be going through some excerpts from this policy analysis document. It's called Texto Pagado,
Okay.
and it was actually put together by a coalition of NGOs working in international development,
Gotcha.
and they kind of lay out some pretty stark warnings
Yeah,
about what this could mean, especially for women and girls around the world.
for sure.
So the real question here is, are we looking at a necessary kind of like adjustment, policy adjustment,
Right.
or are we looking at something that's going to be a major setback for, all the progress that has been made on gender equality globally?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly it's a significant shift, I think, in U.S. policy. To really kind of wrap our heads around it, I think it's helpful to remember that, the U.S. has been such a cornerstone of global development for decades.
Right.
This isn't just about budget cuts.
Right.
It's really a fundamental change in how the U.S. engages with the rest of the world.
Right, for sure.
And the document really highlights some really alarming potential consequences,
Yeah.
particularly, as you said, for women and girls in low-income countries.
Yeah, and what really struck me was just like the sheer number of programs
Yeah.
that could be on the chopping block here.
Right.
Texto Pagado specifically calls out sexual and reproductive health programs,
Yeah.
maternal care initiatives,
Mhm.
and all the different types of efforts to kind of boost women's economic and political, participation.
Absolutely.
What stood out to you the most in terms of like potential fallout?
Well, I think what's really concerning is that these cuts aren't happening in isolation. They're coming at a time when a lot of countries are still reeling from the pandemic and are dealing with all of the impacts of climate change.
Yeah.
And for decades, U.S. funding has really been a lifeline for a lot of these clinics, providing essential health care, including contraception, safe childbirth services.
Right.
And it's also been a huge part of supporting, education programs that empower girls, help them break the cycle of poverty.
Right.
And so without that support, Texto Pagado suggests we could see like a surge in maternal mortality rates.
Wow.
Millions of unintended pregnancies
Yeah.
and girls being forced out of school
Yeah.
into early marriage.
It's almost like we're potentially looking at like a reversal
Yeah.
of like decades of progress
Yeah.
on gender equality.
Yeah.
And not just in terms of health, but like,
Mhm.
in terms of economic opportunity as well.
Exactly. Yeah. The
Yeah.
document really paints, a pretty grim picture. Imagine clinics being forced to shut down because of lack of funding.
Wow.
Women losing access to vital medications or
Oh.
having to make these really impossible choices between feeding their families and accessing healthcare.
Right.
It's a potential crisis on a massive scale.
Yeah, absolutely. Now it's definitely worth acknowledging that the administration has, they've stated their reasoning for kind of this